So one of the most anticipated games for the Nintendo Switch is, of course, Metroid Prime 4. It feels like we've been talking about this game forever, and rightfully so. We were first introduced to this game in 2017. We are now in 2022, 5 years after the announcement, roughly, and we haven't seen anything from it. We haven't seen a glimpse, a morsel, a little teaser trailer, a little anything about this game. And there's many people wondering what is going on with this game. What is the current status of this game? Because this game in and of itself hasn't exactly had the most easy ride when it came to the development of the game. Obviously, there's been many changes that have been done. There's been team swaps that have been done, and some new information has people genuinely concerned. And I kind of want to talk about all this information, kind of try to make sense of it for a lot of people, because it seems like there's two camps with Metroid Prime 4. There's their camp that, you know, take your time, eventually it'll come out, eventually it'll be a good game. And then there's people that are genuinely concerned at how much turnover there's been with this game and how long it's just been in development. Now, to sort of go over very briefly the development cycle of Metroid Prime 4, like I said, it was announced at E3 2017 with a little teaser graphic like, Metroid Prime 4, it's coming, bitches, get ready, and everyone got very hyped about it, myself included. I am a huge Metroid Prime fan. I think that's one of the best series that Nintendo has, because really, it's very different than a lot of other Nintendo games. Sure, at its core, it still maintains that same sort of Metroid gameplay where you're going through areas, trying to find new power-ups to advance to other areas, scanning things, learning about the world that you're in. But I feel like the Metroid Prime series really does something very different, because it's a first-person shooter slash adventure game, and that's not something you see Nintendo themselves really take on. And so to see a first-party Nintendo game in a first-person shooter style, a first-person adventure style, isn't something very commonplace, where it's commonplace on other platforms. Of course, the Metroid Prime trilogy was very highly rated, one of the best games of all time in my opinion. I think Metroid Prime, the original game, is an absolute masterpiece. It was one of the best looking games that came out during that time frame, because that was back when Nintendo was competing in the power game. The GameCube was super underrated in terms of power. It was honestly right up there with the Xbox. The PlayStation 2 was the weakest system of all. There's a little history lesson for you kiddies. But yeah, Metroid Prime is a series that a lot of people love. And with Metroid Prime 4, when we got that first announcement, people were, stoked for this game. It seemed like, Nintendo usually doesn't talk about things unless they're pretty far along in development to where they're comfortable enough to actually talk about the game, especially first party games. That's just something that they've always done. Maybe a year or two out max, but obviously that wasn't the case with Metroid Prime 4. A little over 3 years ago, we got an update on the development of Metroid Prime 4, and it wasn't good. Originally, it looked like Bandai Namco was the company that was working on this game, which didn't really make sense for a lot of people, because Retro Studios, of course, was the company that made all the other Metroid Prime games. So it seemed like they knew how to make these games. So giving it to another company, what does that say? Is that saying something about Retro Studios? Is that saying something about Nintendo's confidence in them? But it doesn't really matter, because they ended up going back to Retro Studios. Now, looking at Retro Studios, they're not a company that makes a lot of games. Realistically speaking, they have not made a new game in 8 years. In 8 years, they have not made a new game. Yes, you could say, well, there was Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze on the Switch. That was a port of a Wii U game from 2014. Talking about new titles, it has been 8 years since Retro has released a game. So what's going on with that? What's going on behind the scenes with Retro, where they haven't made a game in 8 years? If I don't make a video in 8 years, I'm irrelevant. I'm dead meat. I'm toast. Like, how are they making money? I don't know. That's a conversation for an absolute another day. But of course, there was a resurgence of Metroid lately with Metroid Dread, which has sold exponentially well. Like, I can't even say anything about it. Like, it has sold way beyond than I thought it would, because Metroid has always been a very niche franchise. The best-selling Metroid game of all time was the original Metroid Prime. When it comes to 2D Metroids, they don't really sell all that great. They're not heavy hitters anymore, but it seems like with the larger user base of the Nintendo Switch, a lot of hype surrounding this game is right up there with Metroid Prime, and it could potentially end up selling better than Metroid Prime did, going over the 3 million mark, which a Metroid game has never done. So we're right back to square one with this. We're back to what is going on with Metroid Prime 4. Why haven't we gotten any updates on it? And obviously, The reason I'm making this video is because there's a little bit of new information, and once again, we're getting back into the two-camp mentality with this game. So recently, as of yesterday, Retro Studios made a post on Twitter saying that they're looking for people to work on something. Obviously, this game is Metroid Prime 4, and they listed two jobs, a tools engineer and a technology engineer. Now, I'm not going to sit here and act like I know what a tools engineer and a technology engineer does, because I'm not that full of myself. I don't understand, that side of things. But looking at Retro's website, it seems like there's a lot more going on than just that. All right, so here's Retro Studios' website. They got a little picture here. We got long-haired Jesus. We got the short-hair guy. We got the attractive chick. Looks like a good working environment. Basically some mumbo-jumbo. I don't care about this. I care about job openings, because we look at these job openings, and there's some questionable things. A concept artist, environment designer, material artist, character artist, a contractor for a user phase, a contractor for a scripter, the technology engineer that we talked about, the tools engineer, environment terrain artist, environment artist in general. Let's see what this does. Let's see if it has so implement new core technologies necessary to realize the vision of our games, maintaining existing code base, optimizing of engines. Like, this all sounds like pretty important stuff. And I'm not going to sit here and downplay it and say that, it doesn't seem like important stuff, because, these things, like, they seem like major things. Participate in development, optimization, and debugging of low-level systems like physics, animation, and memory management. So what am I saying here? I'm saying that I feel like, and I've been saying this for quite a while now, I feel like Metroid Prime 4 is having some sort of struggle. That there's some sort of struggle when we shift studios from Bandai Namco back to Retro Studios. There has to be a reason for that. There has to be a reason that they brought it back to Retro Studios, obviously because they weren't happy with what Bandai Namco was doing. But what was Bandai Namco doing? What's the scope of this game? What's the size of this game? Is it another Metroid Prime traditional style game? Is it going to have things like online multiplayer? Because I really feel like that game needs to have a little more bells and whistles, especially with how long it's been since we've gotten Metroid Prime 3 Corruption. Yes, there was the compilations. There's heavy rumors about a Metroid Prime full-on remake as well. Maybe Retro is working on that. Maybe that's what some of these job listings are for. We don't really know, because it doesn't necessarily specify what games they're going to be working on within this environment. But taking it at face value, you have to assume it's at least something to do with Metroid Prime 4, because we don't know what they're working on, but we do know that they are working on Metroid Prime 4. We just don't know anything beyond that. So maybe a Metroid Prime HD game for the Nintendo Switch, built more so from the ground up with new textures and stuff like that. Some of those job listings would make sense. But I keep seeing something, and this is kind of how I'm going to close out the video with this. I keep seeing something, and it drives me nuts. It drives me nuts, because I don't think it's accurate. And people always love to say this. They love to say this quote that Mr. Shigeru Miyamoto came out with. And, sometimes it works, but most of the time it doesn't. The quote is, "A delayed game is eventually good, but a rushed game is forever bad." But I don't think history really leans into saying that, because so many people like to say, oh, well, it's good that Prime 4 is getting delays. It's good that Pikmin 4 are getting delays, even though this game was supposedly done years ago, according to Shigeru Miyamoto. No, it's good because it means the game is going to come out and be very high quality. But think of how many games have come out that were in development hell. And I'm not saying that Metroid Prime 4 is in development hell. I'm just saying in general, think of games that have been in development hell. I think the biggest one that comes to mind is Duke Nukem Forever. That game was in development hell. It came out, and was that good? No, it wasn't a good game. Like, I still had a little fun with it, but I picked it up for like $5 or $10 because the game completely bombed. It got panned by critics. It got panned by users of the game. Nobody liked this game. Nobody wanted this game. That when it came out, it wasn't what they wanted. It wasn't what they were expecting. So the delayed game wasn't eventually good. There's tons of games that get delays and then they come out and they're not good. Yes, there are opposites to that statement. There are situations where it does end up being good, but we live in a society now where it's like rushed games are almost the norm. You release a game and they're like, oh, we'll just patch it down the road. But Does that necessarily mean good things for Metroid Prime 4, the delays of this game? I mean, I really have to say it's in development hell because of the fact that it's been nearly 5 years since this game was announced. You gotta remember, that was announced. So this game is probably in development for longer than 5 years, more than likely, because you're not gonna announce a game unless you've done something to it. So this game has been in development for well over 5 years now. We still haven't seen a screenshot. Still haven't seen a video of it. Now, I'm sure whenever we do see this, the game will be good, but I don't know. Something feels off about all of this, you know? And I'm not trying to be negative in this video. I'm not trying to say, oh, Metroid Prime 4 is going to suck, because I'm super looking forward to this game. But something about this whole situation just feels off. Something doesn't feel right. And I wish there was more transparency with this. I wish that there was more information out there. Hopefully, this video will be dated soon. Hopefully Nintendo does something during a direct where they're like, hey, here's Metroid Prime HD and here's Metroid Prime 4. Metroid Prime 4 is going to come out, you know, at this time. Metroid Prime HD is going to come out at this time. But I don't know. I'm almost starting to be concerned with this. I'm almost starting to lose a little bit of faith, because when you look at the company involved in it, like I said, they haven't released a game in really 8 years. So what's going on there? Are there problems there? What were the problems at Bandai Namco to where Nintendo took the game back and gave it to Retro, and it looks like they're having to start from the ground level? Something's not right about this. Something's a little off. I don't know. Maybe I'm looking too deep into this. I'm sure you'll let me know in the comment section down below. You'll be like, Metroid Prime 4 will be the best game ever, and the delays are good. I don't care if it doesn't come out until 2030. Like, there's going to be people that are like that, but I think it's a genuine concern. I think it's something that needs to be talked about. I hope the game is great. I hope we see something from the game, but all these delays, all this radio silence of the game, it is a bit concerning. So let me know what you think of everything in the comment section down below, because I'm sure you will. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button, like and share the video, all that good YouTube stuff. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next one. There's a blizzard coming. I'm hoping I don't lose power, because I'm about to go play Pokemon Legends Arceus like all day, dude. I'm not doing nothing. Later.